victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Petticini. He beats them all. Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle. Sharks coming through. None of them can hold this.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a belated live stream edition of the Tip Sheet podcast. It is a Wednesday evening as opposed to our usual Tuesday evening recordings, but I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. Joining me is my good mate, Sixties, also known as Craig. And yeah, the reason we've been late, 24 hours late, is we've had a very, very busy past 24 hours getting content recorded. Some big hitters coming for everyone that listens to the Tip Sheet. Our annual sit-down with Mark O'Neill. We also had a chat with a couple of the PLC board members that we're going to share in the next, I think Mark is scheduled for Friday, right, Craig? And then I think Sunday we're looking for the PLC sit-down and chat. So plenty on the docket for fans of the Blue and Gold, for fans of the Tip Sheet. But before we get to all that and more, as always, a check-in on how you are holding up, mate. What is doing for the big fella?
Well, it's no wonder you'd ask me how I'm going. I haven't seen you for ages.
What was it? We recorded this morning. We recorded yesterday. So it's been all of 8 hours, 9 hours since we've seen each other, maybe? Yeah. So it's been a long time between recordings.
Absolutely has been. And, of course, it was a case of last night. We were still at Kellyville at the normal time that we'd be doing the live podcast. So there was no question about having to bump the even if we'd said, look, we might be able to squeeze it in, there was no real chance of being able to get that podcast done last night. So yeah, it was it's been a big 24, 48 hours in terms of us with the content. But as John just said, we'll have the interview with Mark O'Neill out on Friday. We'll have our special chat with Leagues Club directors Darren Adam and Richard Fodor on Sunday. And I really encourage Eels supporters and, of course, Paraleagues Club members to check that one out, because we don't just talk about the Eels, but we also talk about some of the developments that are going on with the Leagues Club and what's happening with them. And as the owners of the Parramatta Eels, what happens with Parramatta Leagues Club is absolutely critical to the Parramatta Group. So it's important to have a chat with them. And we're still going to get our live podcast in next week, John. So
Christmas Eve.
Stand by
actually,
for that. We've got
Tuesday.
some posts coming up, some trainer reports. I think we might just find enough hours in the day, maybe to get this done. So but we have got this podcast now to go, John. So our reminders, of course, that no matter what platform you're listening to this on or watching this on, if you can give it a like and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated by us. It really helps with all the metrics. It helps to get that content out there to as many Eels supporters as we can. And look, we've got a really loyal following on the Cumberland Throw. We want to grow it. We really want to grow it in 2026. It's time for us to, I guess, make a stand as the number one trusted Parramatta Eels website. And that's what we're all about going into 2026. Also, a shout out and a thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, the OG sponsors, and of course to Paraleagues, the home of the Eels. We've been very, very grateful for their support and allowing us as well to be able to be there every home match day, presenting our preview and having a chat when they are available with our legend players. Something we love doing. So thank you to those organisations. And John, I guess it's ready to roll. Hit that stinger.
News team, assemble!
Well, as per usual last week, we had our news podcast, and then the very next day, Big Eels news drops. Now, I've had a little word to one or two people up at the Eels. They had a bit of a laugh about it. It wasn't intentional or anything like that. In fact, the news should have dropped that Tuesday afternoon, but they had to cross a few T's and dot a few I's before they put that news out about the contract extension for Isaiah Iongi. But John, just on that contract extension, because we haven't had a chance to really talk about it since that news dropped, but it's really a sign of the faith that a rising star places in the club. It's also good to see that he and his manager were on board with keeping things like quiet about the negotiations. It wasn't played out in the media. It could have been something that was. They could have waited. They could have, if Iongi had another breakout year on top of his debut season next year, he'd be a player much in demand. The fact that we've locked him in to the long term, to the end of 2030, speaks volumes, not just about how the club rates Iongi, but also how Iongi and his agent sees the future of the Eels. So it's, very, very, very positive news, very warmly received by the fans. Yeah. And I think the fans got that appreciation and that understanding of how the club does prefer to go about its business as quietly as possible.
Because that was perhaps the number one most stressed potential re-signing in chat and beyond. You know, we'd have people every week asking us, when's Iongi re-signing? Are the Eels going to lock up Iongi? And you can understand why. The kid had an absolutely outstanding 2025, and you could see the potential to grow and become one of the Code's premier number ones. So you can understand why fans were pressing. But like you said, the club went about its business really nicely behind the scenes, got him locked up, and now he's set to be, I believe, the longest contracted Eel, right? I think as it stands, he is. Does Moses go to 2030?
Or is
6,
he into 29?
He might. He's 29 or 30. So, massive keep for the Eels, Craig. There is no doubt about it. It locks in essentially 4/5 of their spine, because you do have two dummy halves who are going to both compete and work together at number 9 in Riley Smith and Talon Silva, and be a formidable battery, whether it's the 9 or the 14 on their back. So you have those two, Mitchell Moses and Isaiah Iongi, locked in long term. Obviously, Jonah Pezzet's not a long term fixture for the club, Craig, but he is turning heads at training, and I'm sure you're going to talk about that in the upcoming segment on the training recap. But he's been very impressive there, and as fans are well aware that the reason Jonah Pezzett is a bridging signing for the Parramatta Eels is that internally there are some fantastic prospects coming through. We've spoken about the likes of Lorenzo Talatayana in particular, but Lincoln Fletcher's in the preseason training program too. The club is securing the most important positions long-term to build for long-term success. So as you can see from the podcast title, he's here for a long time and a good time, as opposed to the song that always likes to go, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Iongi is a huge building block for Jason Riles and the Blue and Gold.
Yeah, absolutely. There was, I think, a Daily Telegraph journalist who had Hayes Dunster down as signing to the end of 2030.
The NRL signings portal had had Iongi of his normal deal still there, another 2 years of run, and then Hayes re-signed to the end of 2030. So,
and unfortunately, I think the journo went with that in his piece without even thinking terribly much about it. But anyway, we move on. John, on Saturday, there was a training session that encompassed every player from the under-16s all the way up to the NRL in the male systems there at Parramatta. I say under-16s up because I originally reported it as Harold Matts and up.
But there were development pathway squads in there.
There was under-16s development players there as well. So quite extraordinary, over 150 players involved in this massive session. And it's the organisation that was involved in that was second to none, because the morning ran like clockwork. And one of the most pleasing things was that the players are doing their warm-ups in their normal squads, and then a siren blew for them to go to their starting stations, and they'd all obviously been given a number that they were starting off at. And one of the loudest groups was, well, if not the loudest group, was the NRL group, woohooing as they were heading off to the first station, and it set that tone and that vibe about how keen they were to get started into the session. And the bit of feedback that I've had from a few younger players was just that opportunity to train with the elite players was an experience that they'll take with them, never forget. So we know that the pathway system's like a funnel. In every graduating year, there's only going to be a small number of players that go on and play and have an NRL career, and it's just the nature of the beast. And it's often a smaller number that go on to have that career at the club that they in the pathways with, because other clubs come swooping, or their incumbent club isn't able to keep them in the system. They don't have the space that's there, because if you think about it, if you've got roughly 30 players, 25 to 30 players in an age squad every year, and they're going up year after year, you know that you're not going to fit in 30 new players into the top NRL squad.
It's a pure numbers game, and that it's tangential to what you're talking about, Craig. But one thing I do want to see, I don't know if we can track it, because I mean you can, but it's a fair bit of effort. But with expansion coming to the NRL, in two major franchises joining in Perth and PNG, or at least that's projected now with PNG, if they stay on track, I am actually very interested to see if there is an uptick in that conversion rate with the funnel, because you've got two more franchises there and they fill out talents. Do you see more players graduating into the NRL? But you're right. As it stands right now in a 17 team NRL structure, there are only so many spots available, and you can only have so many players progress through, which is why covering juniors is difficult. You know, you want so many of them to succeed, but you know that the science, the math says that only a certain percentage will get through. Yeah,
and one of the things that the good pathways clubs do, the good development clubs, is they are upfront about those sort of statistics with the young players, because it's not a case of having a plan B, as we've heard them say at Parramatta. It's a matter of having two plan A's. They cannot rely on having a rugby league career, because even though they might be an elite junior player, not every elite junior player, and a long way from it, goes on to be. You see some absolute studs in the pathways that just cannot convert for whatever reason. You know, sometimes it might just be bad luck, bad timing, bad injuries. Can't make the jump when the physicality evens out a bit, because they're physically more superior at that age group. There are so many factors that can inhibit a player from fully realising their NRL dream. So, like you said, no plan Bs, two plan As. Yeah, absolutely. But it was a great session to watch. As I said, it went like clockwork. It was good to hear the players talk. The one club, Para Proud. You're going to hear a lot more of Para Proud moving forward. Jason Riles, he really wants everyone to connect to the badge. That connectedness is really important. It's whether it's the players, whether it's the staff, whether it's the supporters, whether it's the sponsors, the corporate partners, whatever it may be, we're all connected by the badge and the colours of the team. So as I said, you're going to hear a lot more about it. The players, it's becoming part of their training regime. It's becoming part of their identity within, just on a day-to-day basis. So, I think it's fantastic to see. of course, that extends to former players as well. And we're seeing more and more players embraced by the club. I didn't put it in my report from Saturday, but Michael Mosley was down there with the training session, and he's like, I can tell you firsthand, he's been last year. He sat beside me during one of the junior reps games, and it was good to be able to connect with a former player there, and knowing that he just popped down to Kellyville to have a look at the junior reps and how they were going, and there he is being warmly embraced by the club, and being down there on the field while they're going through their paces on Saturday. So that was fantastic. John, this NRL roster, we had a bit of a chat to Mark O'Neill about the roster, and I don't want to preempt anything that we spoke with Mark about. We'll leave that till Friday when we actually have Mark discuss what's happening with our roster moving forward and the plans that they have in that direction. But as far as the big stories are concerned, where it's the talk about Keon Koloamatangi and Brian Kelly, it's been a bit quiet lately.
Yeah, actually, while we're recording with Mark, I think news broke that Souths had tabled their final offer to Keon. And so one way or the other, fans of the blue and gold, and obviously the Myrtle and red and the red V as well, in the coming weeks, I'd say probably the other side of Christmas, we're going to find out where Keon's loyalties will lie beyond 2026.
Unless it's tomorrow, John.
That's well, I did get a message from our mate Ham saying, I see that the tip sheets tried to crack the code and put his recording back a day to try and get ahead of the news. It's like, nah, it's going to break tomorrow. Big story tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
I've had quite a few messages.
There'll be a Keon announcement or a junior Barlow extension or something tomorrow. You can just bank on it. But look, obviously, Mark didn't share anything about the Keon outcome there, but that was what the story that broke as we were recording. And based on what we've seen, Craig, throughout this entire process, you feel pretty confident the Eels have put together a very strong package, both financially and then in terms of what they're selling with their vision to Keon. Jason, you look at the three teams involved, and we have a bias. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't have a bias. We have a very heavy blue and gold bias, but the projection for Parramatta, it is very good right now. We talked about 4/5 of your spine locked in with a couple of great young competitors for that final spot in the spine in 2027. You've got some great young forwards or upcoming forwards. Got a very solid back line that has a good blend of youth and also experience. It's not the strongest team in the NRL. You're not going to sit here and pretend that it is, but it is an ascending team. And South Sydney, unfortunately, they're mired with some heavy, legacy contracts and older players. And the Dragons, I actually do think the Dragons have some good young forwards coming through, Craig.
Yeah.
But they've also got a very heavy, older top end of the roster. Their entire spine, barring like in King Tajia, is elderly or, Kyle Flanagan in that regard. So I think the vision there for Parramatta is the strongest, but I also acknowledge that he has a lot of loyalty to South Sydney. And he is very committed to that club, and it's not going to be easy to pry him away. But I do think the Eels have put together a package that is as strong as you could hope for as a fan without being... And I saw in chat, I think Chris Hill was saying he's a bit concerned about Keon not being worth $1 million. I don't think that's unfair, but I also think Keon's in his prime. He gives you the flexibility across both the edge and the middle. And this is a bit of a, the market says you are what you are, right? And if you've got three teams all putting their sort of APY average per year near seven figures, I think that's a reflection of Keon's talents and also how hard it is to lure that kind of representative forward away from a club.
John, it's interesting because probably around that 2009 to 2013 era, maybe even up to 2014 and 15, it was fair to say that there were a lot of players who were on above the deals that they probably deserved. Like, we were paying over market price.
There's no doubt about
when
that.
you're sitting down near the bottom of the table, that's just the consequence that happens. If you want to attract certain players, you have to pay them more than what another club might do. But the trouble was, we were attracting players who were towards the end of their career and paying them like height of their career type money. We were attracting players who were journeymen or at best average first graders and paying them above average coin. This is all part of how the Eels got caught out with salary cap issues, because everyone knows you only have to look at the Eels roster and go, how's that roster broken the salary cap? Everyone was thinking the same thing in that regard. So you go breaking the salary cap, and you sit at the bottom of the competition table. It tells you, even if you're doing that sort of thing, you're not doing it particularly well. But the bottom line was there were players that were paid well above what they were worth.
Yep.
Now, we fast forward to these days, and you've got probably a bit more criticism that would come from supporters that we want to see Parramatta open the purse strings and sign a game-changing player or two. And yes, we managed to pick up a couple of game changers in the last couple of years, but I guess Lomax was an example of that, and he's only stayed for 1 year. The Fox has become that, but we didn't have to pay game-changing money. He came for that opportunity.
And that is a reminder of the different ways that you can take on the market. Some of it is pure opportunism, and that was the Fox. Likewise, Dylan Walker wasn't a player that was available, but then suddenly he's a Parramatta Eel. So you don't. Obviously, you want to see the big marquee signings every now and then. You can't keep making splash signings. That's not how the cap works. Even for the Roosters, that's not how the cap works. As much as we joke about their ability to recruit marquee players, but every now and then you do have to open the purse strings, and you do have to go find the player that could be, or you project to be, the missing piece. And I think for Jason Riles, this is clearly his guy. This is the guy that's going to bridge the Parramatta Eels from Junior Barlaw, who is still part of the program, still an important piece, but he's not in his prime anymore. You can't just say, Junior, we need 200 metres a week. You can't do that with Junior anymore. With Keon, he's 28. You can say, you're the anchor of the pack, mate. You're going to go out there. You're going to get support from Junior. You're going to get support from Sam. You're going to get support from Jack Williams and all the other forwards there, whether it's Kelmer, whether it's Gideon, whoever. But you're going to be our guy. And I think that is the vision here, is that Keon is the anchor of your pack for the next half a decade, if this works out.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It may well be that there might be many supporters who go, well, this particular player, is he really worth that much? And I think when you start to get a little bit of a debate about it, it tells you probably that you're around the mark, where you get people saying yes, people saying no. But if you're getting that mixed sort of response, you know that it's close to the mark that you need to. And now, obviously, the Eels believe he's that strong a target from the perspective of not just what he can deliver on the field, but maybe as well what he can deliver in the way of leadership. As you said, being that dominant forward, moving into future years. So he becomes what the Eels value him as right now. So, and given that the salary cap goes up each year, it's...
I think there's a new TV deal on the horizon too. I think in chat we're saying around 2028 when the next negotiations are up. And the the overt chatter out of PVL's camp is that they're going to push hard, aren't they, with digital streaming, with maybe going across multiple networks in Australia. So they're going to try and leverage maximum value for the product, which, as they should. They probably took a deal that was too broadcaster friendly in the wake of all the COVID stuff, in the most recent deal. So you could see a very significant explosion in cap growth, which means that legacy deals will look a lot better. And I don't think that Keon's deal is outrageous under the current cap either. I think you can argue that it's maybe slight overs, but it's not too often that a player of Keon's caliber hits the market. And in going in on Keon, the Eels are making a conscious and deliberate decision to get or stay away from the Tino Fa Sumala Awi sweepstakes, where it's going to be insane money. Like this is a sort of like maybe the best of both worlds view from them, where you're going to get the impact forward, you're going to get the guy that can anchor the pack, and you're going to pay significant dollars for him, but you're not paying a crippling amount in your salary cap, which is if the numbers being projected for Tino are like anywhere near what they turn out to be, you're talking like the best player in the game. Even like if Nathan Cleary got that kind of money, you'd still have reservations.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So, and that's when you get that imbalance, isn't it, in your salary cap, when one player eats up so much. And Manly definitely felt it over the last couple of years with their roster decisions and with injury-prone players. So we move on, John. I guess we could touch on Brian Kelly. Again, not too much news that's coming out about that. And I think there's a few things at play with regard to do we sign one or two players? We spoke again with Mark about these sorts of decisions rather than a specific player, the sorts of decisions around what position, when you make decisions by, those sorts of things. I don't want to preempt that by talking about it now. Otherwise, it's like, well, why tune into the podcast if we told you everything that's recorded in that podcast? But so I'll keep it specific about Brian Kelly. He really he's got relocation decisions, significant relocation decisions that he would have to make on any offer that he would get from any Sydney club. I think he's got a young family, and he's getting towards that end of his career. So do you sign a 1 or 2 year deal for something that requires you to relocate during those 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, it's not.
And if you do relocate, you bring family with you, or do you fly out for the football season and go back home whenever you get the chance? I guess the most extreme version of that was Semi Radradra, who would fly. He would live in Australia for most of the time, but the club and Brad Arthur were very good with him and allowing him to take spots of leave here and there to fly back to Fiji and be it a week here, a week there, maybe a few days after a game. So he just get a little bit of time with his family. It's not as extreme for Brian Kelly in that regard, but you would have to make decisions about factoring in how much relocation impacted him, and maybe trying to put a dollar figure on that as compared to an offer he might get elsewhere that doesn't involve relocation. We don't know. I mean, maybe there isn't an option. Maybe his only option will be coming to a Sydney-based club. Don't know.
Yeah,
so,
these are all the logistical things that face players and clubs that you're just not privy to behind the scenes, aren't you? It's at the end of the day, fans see it as a financial decision, but there is a lot more to it, isn't there? When you talk about that work-life balance and relocating a family or living away from the family. So, yeah, I mean, we've talked about Brian Kelly before. As a backup player or a guy that's, competing but not necessarily a guaranteed starter, tremendous value in your top 30. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better backup relative to experience and value in that regard. He has the odd missed tackle to his name, but he can also bust the game open for his ability to break a tackle. So would be all on board for that. Ditto for no updates on him as well, but Sloan as well gives you a player that has deficiencies but also extreme strengths. So in that capacity as a backup player or a player competing to force a start, great value to the top 30, but unfortunately nothing to report on that front.
and that one's really our push.
That was more on the basis that there was reports that the Dragons were ready to part ways with Tyrell Sloan, and maybe Parramatta should look at him as a value proposition. But that's certainly not anything in the media directly linked into the blue and gold. But there is actually, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, it's still very much a rumor at this stage. don't know if you saw, Craig, but there was a report linking Sean Russell to the Bears as a potential target.
Yeah, I've had people message me about that, and I hadn't heard anything around the club in that regard. The first I'd heard was when one of our listeners got in touch with me and said, "Have you heard something about Sean Russell going to Perth?" And I was like, "No." And I was sent a link to the information that's out there, and this was one from the Mole. So make of that what you will.
Mole's strike rate isn't always up there, but yes.
No.
You could see the link
but
it makes sense for the Bears. You know, Sean is a young and ascending centre, had his best season of his career of his season in 2025, and his best football is ahead of him still. You need those kind of players when you're building a franchise, no doubt, but it's almost echoes the idea with Keon, right, that to pry Sean away from Parramatta would take a significant investment, and obviously the Bears are one of the clubs better positioned to do that because they are an inception club in 27. But I think Sean is pretty fiercely loyal to the blue and gold, and I think that given what we're building here and the fact that he was a big part of it in 2025 and figures to be a big part of it moving forwards, it's going to take a pretty fair offer to prize him from Parramatta.
I guess if he was on the outer or felt that he was going to struggle to make the first grade team, you'd maybe think he might consider it. If he gets offered money that he can't say no to, you wouldn't blame him for considering it. No. There's only a very short time that NRL
we literally just talked about the funnel, didn't we? And the fact that you get to the NRL and even then you're not guaranteed to play 50, 100, 200 games. Players maximising their value. Obviously, there are exceptions to the rule, guys that will aggressively break contracts and whatnot. But at the end of the day, if a young player says, this is the best for me and my family, you kind of have to say, well, yeah, like the data says that you're only here for 5 years, 6 years. If you're having a good career, get the bag. So, but yeah, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm also not sweating bullets right now, Craig. I think that Sean is very happy at Parramatta, and I think that the Eels will put an appropriate deal on the table for him to stick around and be a starting centre for Parramatta.
Yep. Moving on again, John. Now turning back to turn the focus back to training. Last week we saw one of the new consultants for the Eels there at training, Matt Burke, former Wallaby fullback and goal kicker, and he's there mentoring the Eels goal kickers. And I believe that's going to be the case for the rest of the preseason, that he's going to be there doing that. Now, whether he's there for field sessions, whether he's there for other times during the day, we don't know, because I'll go there and watch a field session for 2 hours, say, and that's 2 hours in a long day. And John, you and I were there yesterday as the players were walking out at 5 p.m. Now, I don't know what the rest of their day was yesterday, but it was certainly a long day because they were there earlier in the morning for their field session, and there they are walking out at 5 o'clock. So whatever it was a long day, and it's not just what happens out on the field. They've got their gym work that they do. They've got video. They've got sessions with their coaches. They've got education that they do. There's a whole range of things that make up the time spent in the life of a full-time footballer, and we only just see a snapshot of it of between 2 to 3 hours at the most out on the field. So seeing Matt Burke there was interesting.
Should I be concerned that the back three might start putting up the up and under, coming back into the kick chase defensive line? Matt Burke was very famous for the good old up and under for the Waratahs at fullback, but yeah, very good goal kicker was Matty Burke. So hopefully we can see the Eels have a nice uptick in success with the 2-point attempts.
It looked like it was just simply working on the strike itself last week, because he had them not lining up for goal to start off with. They were just kicking the ball into the high fences and just working on their strike. And then after that, they were working on kicking from some specific spots. So it'd be interesting to see whether there's things like a little bit more distance that the players can get, let alone the accuracy that's there. Mitch Moses is already a renowned kicker, but looking at those who were kicking, you had the likes of Pezzett that was kicking, so he's obviously in the pecking order when it comes to goal kicks. Sean Russell, obviously, but there was also Riley Smith having some kicks. We did see him kick a goal last year, and I guess if you'd probably be having a bit of problems in the team if you got down to a fourth string kicker in a game.
It's the Parramatta Eels, Craig. Never say never. Never say never when it comes to us and injuries.
Open my mouth there, John, if the truth be known, because you know how I can manifest some of the worst case scenarios by mentioning it. So, but
with all due respect, mate, please.
So he was there. You touched on it before about Pezzett. I really like what I'm seeing on the left side, which is where Pezzett will be playing. To me, it's like having two halfbacks playing. A fully qualified halfback playing on either side of the ruck, because that to me is how Pezzett plays. Like he sets the play up. He's not a 5'8" in say a Lorenzo Talatina or a Joash Papali type player, that sort of flair, that running type player. I guess Cameron Munster's a bit like that for the Storm. But he looks like a real organisation, game manager type halfback as well, and seems to be taking control of that left-hand side. The combinations seem to be coming together quite well. At the moment, we've seen Jordan Samrani filling in at centre over there, because with Bailey Simonson and his hamstring injury, Sean Russell has moved over to the wing that you would expect Bailey Simonson to.
I did see some amusing reports about Sean Russell winning the wing spot in the media on the basis of that, not really considering the fact that the Eels weren't fully helping the back line. But yes, wouldn't be the press jumping the gun, wouldn't it?
No, look, there's plenty of press who read TCT training reports, but there's obviously some that will just look at photos or will hear that he's been training on the wing without the reason as to the why. Now, what I will say is that Jordan Samrani has been looking the goods at centre, and it may well be that he might have gone far enough into the pre-season that he gets the nod for that at the start of the year. He might be so entrenched, the combinations might be well and truly working by the time Bailey's ready to come back. So I'm not sure exactly when Bailey's going to start doing the full-time training. I know you had a chance to speak to Bailey a little bit yesterday, John. I was on the phone when he came out. Did he give any indication to you as to when he'll be hitting the full-time training again?
I got to be level with you. I was mostly talking about his Christmas plans. We were just having a quick hangout chat. We were talking about the holidays, but he was in good spirits. So I imagine he'll probably come back on the other side of the break and hopefully be good to go. But it was just catching up with the holiday spirits in mind there.
You know what, and that's not a bad thing with the players as well. To when you get a chance to talk to them, it's not always.
Doesn't have to be about footy 100%. Yeah,
they obviously get sick and tired of it. It comes with the territory. But if you can say g'day to them and have a chat about something else, I know Dylan always loved being able to not have to talk footy. So yeah, but anyway, what else has happened with the training? They're starting to do a lot more opposed work right now, and being able to go there and watch them do the 13 on 13 is this is where it starts to get a lot more interesting, a lot more fun as far as watching preseason work, because there's only so much where the drills, the skills work that they do is similar, or it might just be building upon something that they've done before. But once you start to get the 13 on 13 stuff, and even if they're just playing right side against left side, they're looking to beat their opposite in those moments, and they might just be working on one play and executing one play. But it's a lot more interesting looking at that and looking at the different shapes and variations, the different options that are there. If they run a particular play, you get to hear the names that they have of some of the plays. I shouldn't really say that. I never included in the training reports, but all the plays, of course, have got all the different shapes have got their names, and it's interesting seeing that within those how many of them have those variations or that are so the play. It's not just the same thing that's being thrown. If they've got different options in terms of the lines that are run or who the ball goes to or that sort of thing within those plays. So, yeah, look, I'd encourage that. Of course, the other thing that I'd encourage as well is they've got a cafe there up at Kellyville. And especially if you're a local to Kellyville, if you're having a listen to this or watching this and you live up in the Hills District, look, it's just a great cafe. You don't have to be there watching training. If you're watching training, well and good. But as far as that's concerned, that when I say that that's a cafe, it's actually run by the Leagues Club. So if you're a Leagues Club member, you get Leagues Club member discounts when you're buying a coffee, if you're getting a smoothie or another drink of some sort, if you're getting a hot meal, a hot snack, a cold snack, whatever the case may be that you get in a cafe. If you're a member, you get the discount. And what better location than there? You can go outside, sit on the balcony with a cafe. They've got the tables, the chairs. It's a great place to be. And as we say from time to time, the Kellyville doctor blows in, has a bit of a breeze there. So in summer, it's not a bad location to be sitting there on the balcony of a morning. You get a bit of sun in the afternoon. So I always encourage people, get there in the morning. Whatever time you like to get to a cafe, get up to the Paradise Cafe in the Eels Centre of Excellence. You've certainly got no shortage of parking there. You might have trouble getting parking at some of the cafes you might go and visit. There's no trouble parking there. No. Plenty of it available. So anyway, that's my little plug for the cafe there. I said I said I would do that to the people, the staff that work there. I said, look, I'm going to give you a bit of a plug in the podcast this week.
The 60s rub there, yeah.
So anyway, last thing before if there's any questions that anyone in chat has, we had the first of the junior rep trials on Saturday night. It was the girls last Saturday. This Saturday, it's the boys. So if you're keen to go and watch up at Kellyville, the Harold Matts kicks off at 6 o'clock, and I think the SG ball will probably kick off around 7:30. That was the times that it went with Elisa Fiaola and the Tasha Gale last week. And what I will say is that the Eels took on the Sharks, and they were far too strong in both grades. That they don't waste time with goal kicks in these first trials. So when a try is scored, the teams just get to come together for a couple of minutes and have a bit of a chat like they would while a kick's being taken, and then they're straight back for the restart. So it's not unusual. Like people, when they're seeing it for the first time, might think, what's going on here? Why is there no kick being taken? That's basically why it's a trial. The other thing too is that in these first trials, they don't kick for touch with penalties. They just advance the play about 10 metres and take a tap. And that's their way of, I guess, maximising game time as well. So, look, if you're going to play a team in junior reps as a trial, it will give you a bit of an idea, a yardstick for how you're travelling. The Sharks aren't a bad team to play. They've always been particularly strong, John, in junior reps.
And I got to say, in general, the Eels don't dilly-dally with their preseason fixtures. They tend to match up against some of the stronger clubs. I mean, Penrith are always, regardless of whether they're the best, they're always, a strong top 8 contender in a given grade. The Bulldogs tend to take the preseason trials very seriously when we match up against them too. So, yeah, the club want to get the most out of the preseason. You've got to respect that process.
Yeah. The Lisa Fiola team were far too strong for the Sharks. They won 24-12. That's 6 tries to 3. And it didn't matter who was on or off the field when they were doing rotations of players. They pretty much kept that standard up throughout the match. As the night went on, the conditions got a lot more difficult. The rain got heavier. Obviously, the light got dimmer. Even though there's floodlights there, it's not like television standard floodlights. So once you got the dim light and the rain, it became hard to see the numbers on the jerseys, especially the Eels, because we were playing in the gold jerseys with white numbering. And I have to be honest, I struggled. I struggled to identify the players. I didn't have a team list, so I was trying to call it with position numbers. But as I said, the Eels looked very well coached in the Lisa Fiola Cup. They looked like they'd been training together for far longer than a pre-season. So it'd be interesting to know how many of them are teammates outside of the junior rep team, how many have come from the same club, because they certainly look very familiar with each other in terms of just the combinations looking well established. The Tarsha Gale match, conditions really started to dominate. There would have been, these matches were all played in thirds of about 20 minutes. And there would have been one of those thirds in the Tarsha Gale, John, where I reckon until the last 5 minutes where there was some completions, I reckon the completion rate for the third would have sat at about 10%. Like, it was literally like one team makes the mistake, the next team makes the mistake, then a mistake, and another mistake, another mistake. It was like a mistake, set the scrum, mistake, first tackle off the scrum. The other team gets the ball. They have an incorrect play of the ball. Ball back to the other team. They lose the ball in contact on an early tackle. It was just any sort of mistake that you could see. They were providing it, and as I said, the conditions certainly didn't help. But much like the Lisa Fiola game, the Parramatta Eels looked like the team most likely. They ended up winning 12-4, so 3 tries to 1. The back three looked especially strong, so I reckon one of those players had to be Freedom, Crichton, Rapati. As I said, it was impossible to identify players in that dim light. It certainly looked like her from a distance. She was tearing the defence to shreds in the way that we were used to Freedom tearing the defence to shreds. So I thought she was one of the most outstanding players out there on the field. And it was really just a matter of the Eels holding on to the ball, and the meters came. Defence from both teams was reasonably strong. I'm not going to question that. It was a tough game. It was a tough slog, but it was just so many errors in those conditions. So anyway, encourage people to get out there this Saturday night for the boys' matches. As I said, it starts at, unless there's a late change, starting at 6 o'clock. I'll do my best to get team list this week, John. But it's normally a lot harder for the matches before the cuts are made. get
You
seat
can
lists.
understand why the club's trying to maybe juggle players on the bubble and whatnot, and not expose further exposure, because obviously clubs can just watch the trials, but there is a bit of nuance there. But I imagine people will be appreciative either way, Craig, that you can get something out there, even considering a lack of potential team lists. All right, let's take a few questions so we get into the intermission. See, Garga's in chat sort of adding some context to Parramatta's offer about Keon Kalamatangi. He seems to think that, like us, that we've put together a very competitive offer on the table, Craig, and it's going to be most likely between us and South Sydney. I think the Dragons are a distant third in that regard. Geographically, I think they fall. I know that you can argue with part of the franchise being in Sydney, but realistically, they're not a Sydney franchise insofar as the Wollongong setup. But yeah, we wait and see. I don't know what the timeline is there, but you can bet it'll be after a podcast some way, somehow. That's all you can take to the bank, is that it will be after one of our podcasts. We did have a question from Chris Bettiol, who was asking us about a couple of things. I think there was it. No, it was.
I did see Chris at the game at the trials on Saturday night.
It was asking us about Ryan Madison. I don't know if you saw the news, Craig, but it seems there's been a smoothing of the relationship, maybe an olive branch extended both ways. At least that's how the media is reporting it, that the Eels and Madison are set to give things a fresh start, which is in line with Madison being back at the preseason training and being part of that setup there. I mean, that's the reality, isn't it, Craig, is that if neither party can find a new home, the best thing they can do is get back to maybe just playing footy.
Look, as you said, if there's no new home that's found, Ryan Madison has a contract at the Eels. It's not going to be in his interest in the final year of a contract to play the entire season in New South Wales.
Ahead of his final NRL contract opportunity. Yeah, exactly. You need to be in the shop front. Exactly.
Yeah, so how's he going to get himself in the shop front? There's only one way he's going to get himself in the shop front, which is that he trains his backside off and performs if given an opportunity. And whether that be that he just is player of the match standard in New South Wales Cup, if he starts here in New South Wales Cup, whether it means that he's just on the training track, that he leads drills, that he leads conditioning runs, whatever it is that he does to prove that he deserves an opportunity in the NRL team, then, as I said, it's in his best interest. It's not in his interest to sit there and get his full contract money just sitting on the sideline or running around in New South Wales Cup. That achieves nothing for him. And people might think, well, it's going to be easy. All he's got a contract. He just has to turn up and he'll get his money. That's only a short-term thing where he gets money in the short term. No, if he doesn't put in, no club's going to make an offer for him after this season. So if nothing's forthcoming before the season starts, and we don't know, like there might be a club that loses players to injury prior to the season starting and they get desperate for experienced forwards, in which case they come knocking and make an offer to take him off Parramatta's hands. We don't know, that sort of scenario could unfold. But as things stand, he's got a contract. The Eels have to pay him, and it's not in his best interest to just turn up and not do anything.
With all that said, though, even considering that let's say the bad blood's being put aside, like if there was bad blood, he's still got a mountainous task ahead of him to crack this team. You're talking about the configurations already without Ryan Madison being part of the equation. Looking at that starting pack and that bench, you're leaving out great players already. So Maddo needs to be hungry, and he needs to be maybe willing to put in some hard yards in New South Wales Cup, because that's what it's going to take other players to be in NRL calculations right now, because of just how deep this forward pack, almost out of nowhere, it feels like. Coming into last year, people were concerned about back row depth, about the Eels not having any recognised weapons on the edge. And now here we are, you're not fitting in all these star back row, or not necessarily star, but on the ascent back rowers. So yeah, it's a kind of a roll up the sleeves and get the work thing for Matter now, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, you've got Jack Williams, who Eels supporters will debate between each other. What is Jack Williams' best position? Is he a middle forward? Is he an edge player? I would argue that I think his footwork and pace make him a greater threat on the edge. There will be people who would argue and say, no, those sorts of qualities in the way the game's being played at the moment are better served in the middle. That would then make it even tougher for some players to get into the team, because the way I see it is Jack Williams is on an edge and either Kelmer or Gideon is on the other edge.
Yeah. And
in which case, there's going to be a quality second rower who's coming off the bench. Personally, John, I think Gideon is a potential superstar in the game, absolute superstar. And I don't think, and I think that the game that is played by Gideon and by Kilmer, I think are very, very similar. And you've got that, which would then offer a similar strike on both sides of the ruck. And I can tell you, Kilmer has turned up to this preseason. Like, his message to the coaches is, you will notice me. You will. Like, he's looked as good as he's been, better than he's been in any other preseason. And that's evidenced by him turning up and running a PB in the Broncos run on his first day back. So what can you say? As you said, John, where I think the Eels, the pack is a strength. I think our spine is a strength. And we do discuss backline issues with buckets in that podcast. So we'll just leave that aspect at that and go to the next question.
Yeah, Phil Earle with actually an important update question that I completely forgot to put to Mark O'Neill, Craig, but he was asking us if we've heard anything on the Will Penasini situation, because if you recall, Will announced a long-term extension during a presser in the season, but the club still only have him contracted at the end of next year in their official portal, well, club/NRL. I actually don't know, Craig.
John, we've seen this before when the club has signed a player, but they just
sit on it, for quite some time.
Yeah. And you know what? If the paperwork's done, the paperwork's done. I know, but fans obviously want clarity and want to know. So I'll see what I can chase up tomorrow, John.
Yeah. Not a bad shout there, Phil. Thank you for the thoughtful update question there. What else we got going on through here? I did see Joel was chiming in when you're talking about having a little poke around the shop. He said he had 3 coffees in the day he watched training with you, so he was well caffeinated that day. Yes, well hydrated, well caffeinated, kept the engine running. I
was wondering how he started to talk faster and faster and faster.
It's like the I don't know if you said the episode of Futurama where Fry spends his $100 stimulus package on 100 coffees. Hit 100 coffees and went God mode. But yes, a bit like that. What else is happening there? Chris again raising a point which I mentioned to you, Craig. The junior rep draws were announced, and it's a tough opening slate for the Parramatta Eels. The boys are on the road for the first 3 rounds, and the girls have a away, bye away in the first month. So no home fixtures for pretty much the first month of football across both the Viola, Gale, and Matt's ball, which is pretty rough. Obviously, it means more home games in the back end, but as we know, that your season can be over before you blink in the junior reps if you get off to a bad start.
Yeah, John, as we did in the back half of the season last year, we're aiming to do a dedicated junior reps podcast each week with our preview. That's we take that as separate to the NRL and lower grades and present it as junior reps. We will have a preview podcast for their season, and I'm talking to AJ Lucantonio about joining us.
Speaking
for,
of AJ, he's in chat. Yeah, so good timing there. He's actually offered some insight, and it is always good to get someone like AJ here because it's free of the blue and gold perspective, so you're getting a different opinion here. He's saying he'd start Williams and Katonga on the edges. Big fan of the motor of Katonga, showed pre-injury. Quite achieved last year among your forwards, yeah. Gideon, I think, it was a slow start for Gideon for the fans, but he won a lot of hearts at that midway point in the season, Craig. And I always go back to our chat with John Muggleton, where he really highlighted Gideon as one of the players to just persevere with. And I think it was that very game that he had a breakout game as well. So, yes, he's definitely a player on the ascent. So we are plenty keen to see Gideon get back to full fitness.
Yes, so, I hadn't spoken to you about that, John, about the getting AJ in for the big preview podcast. So, so g'day there, AJ. I have spoken to AJ. It's the most important thing is getting the talent organised, John.
Yes.
We worry about the organisational aspects. We just get the talent in.
Exactly, and let everything else fall into place as it will.
That's it exactly. So, and AJ's the league scene has got out their list of development contract players and also their players who are on train and trials. And just the important clarifier there, which is AJ rates a player as a train and trial if they're doing the preseason.
Yeah, which I think is a fair. Yep. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily qualify for the NRL side of things, but I think it's a good homogenisation of players that aren't necessarily fully contracted. So it's a good read too. So if we all know AJ puts out phenomenal content, but it's always great to get another perspective on Parramatta players. And AJ's put together a really deep look at both our dev and, like you said, train and trial players there. So give it a read.
Well, if we went on this time last year, Riley Smith would not have featured in that list if it was a strict train and trial list. Players who had been signed for like their 42 weeks or whatever it is that they signed for as train and trialers. He was a pre-season contracted player and then was going back to lower grades. It was just that his pre-season was so strong that he went past the dummy halves, the incumbent dummy halves at the club, and quickly established himself as the number one dummy half in the club and got his upgrades quick smart.
To Dev and then to a top 30 deal. Yeah, a meteoric rise for Riley. And again, shows you the value of turning up to the preseason hungry, fit, and determined. So I don't know if we'll get another Riley Smith this year, Craig, just because of how high that standard was. But we've got a few players standing out in the preseason among those back-end top 30 young players too. So could be storylines to watch heading into 2026. A couple more questions. Chris asking, I don't know if you can disclose this, Craig, but we did get a little bit of insight into some of those former player groups that you mentioned, former players the groups named after. Chris was hoping for a little bit more insight there. I'm not sure if you're privy to sharing that, but we do know, was it Muggleton was one of the groups?
Yeah, so John Muggleton was one of them. Look, I'll just give one more because he's a well-known Parramatta player, and that's Stephen Edge. So, but the others I'll just keep because
keep them in the pocket to drop in on a future podcast. I did see my good mate Ron had a bit of fun with the mole there, saying he got blocked for poking fun at the mole's predictions. Well done, Ron. What else we got here? JJ asking, do you think the Eels will up the offer for Keon to 5 years? I think maybe they already have. I would hazard a guess that the offer is essentially locked in now for all three parties. I think that a lot of the negotiating is being done. I'm not speaking from a position of privilege here, Craig, but if South's to table their final offer, maybe the Eels and Dragons might have a final adjustment, but it's been a pretty long and drawn-out process. There's been multiple, if the media is to be believed, adjustments of offers across the last couple of weeks. So, I don't know, I suppose that the natural extension of that is if you were in charge, would you be willing to take our offer from the rumoured 4 years to 5 years if that would get the deal done?
Look, I guess that what that comes down to is what came up in the negotiations. If there'd been indications from the player that what they would be interested in was a certain length of contract. Now, we know, for example, going back to Dylan Brown,
that they stuck firm there.
Dylan was keen for the club just to match the number of years of the contract, not necessarily the dollars, but the years of the contract. And the Eels weren't prepared to commit to a 10-year deal, like Newcastle were. So you would think that the specific length of contracts would have come up in negotiations. So if the Eels were to feel that, look, they knew that he was keen on 5 years, one of the other clubs has now offered 5 years. If you think someone is that much a part of the future and it just takes that extra year to get the job done, I'd say you do it.
Would you let it, controversial one now, would you let it be a player option?
Never. Never.
Yes, never.
No, they have to stand strong in that regard. It's the moment that you let something slide in any aspect of life, in any aspect of business, the moment you let something slide and go, okay, I won't worry about it this time.
I was just checking to see if you resolve a weekend. I'm glad it hadn't.
No,
I think
not at all.
Maybe there is some point down the road where the Eels will explore a player option for maybe the next marquee that they desperately need. But I do think that they're not. It'd take a serious consideration to open the door on that and allow player agents to then set precedent and say, well, you did it for him, you can do it for him. Which
that's it. That's the whole thing. It sets a precedent. It says you don't really mean what you say.
Yeah.
You can't have that. Can't be something that the Eels backtrack on, and knowing that was something that the chairman of the board, Matthew Beach, said at the start of last year, then I expect that the Eels will stay strong on that.
Yes, sir. Chris Hill saying he'd hate to be in the poor carriage group. Poor Paul catching strays. Unfortunately,
How did he know? How did he know? No, there is no poor carriage group. No.
Unfortunately for Carriage, just a moment of forever infamy, isn't it? So
it's when you look back on it, you go, how does a player end up for given the sort of season that he had, to have that be the thing that he's remembered for is that meltdown performance. And I know it was a meltdown performance that virtually, well, you won't say it single-handedly caused the loss. It just didn't help in any way.
Yeah.
But I guess it's almost like our good mate Neville Glover. He's infamous for a dropped pass in a grand final. Yet you're talking about someone who had moments of magic in so many games over his career, that scored some of the most incredible tries.
Yeah, one negative moment defines their perspective among fans. Yep, that's the distilled essence of sports, isn't it? Just one moment, positive or negative, can completely define how someone is regarded long term in their legacy, which is kind of great. It's why you love sports, but it can be so brutal and unfair sometimes.
Yeah, and of course the other thing is too with someone like Neville, he won his Australian jersey after that event. Like, that event was early in his career. That was
he went on to forge a legitimate representative career, and the only thing, and we've spoken to Neville candidly plenty, because he's been a game day guest on our pre-game show at the Leagues Club, and he's been part of the post-game too in years gone by. And he's always upfront about him getting asked about that question, because that is all he gets asked about by fans is, hey, Neville, you remember the pass you dropped? And he always gives an honest response. But, mate, you think about the human aspect of it, and God, it must be so infuriating to have such a really good career, and then all people ask you about is a drop pass.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, John, I think this just about brings us to your musical interlude.
Let's get into it. I did see a funny Phil pointing out that it did look strange seeing Dill in the Newcastle jersey. By contrast, I got to say, Jack de Belin looks like a natural in blue and gold. Like he's always almost like Glenn Morrison in that regard, like just that lock forward-esque picture. Natural fit for the blue and gold in terms of colours, but Dill and the Newcastle kid did look odd.
Yeah, I couldn't look at it. It flashed up for a second. I was like, no.
Alrighty, but yeah, on that note, let's head into the intermission. Look, we're just a week over from Christmas. In fact, it's a week to Christmas Eve. So I don't know if you want to do a Christmas Eve stream next week. If we do a Wednesday podcast, I don't know. Maybe go back to Tuesdays. Who knows?
Yeah,
but
we'll go with the Tuesdays.
Go for Tuesday. In the spirit of Christmas, we got two more intermission musics before Saint Nick comes down chimneys or whatever the modern house has, seeing as chimneys aren't that common these days. We're going to go to not necessarily a Christmas carol, but one of the iconic Christmas songs from one of the iconic Christmas movies, Craig. And look, there's some debate about whether it's a Christmas movie or an action thriller, but I will say that Die Hard is one of the Christmas classics, mate. So a little bit of Ode to Joy, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony from the vault opening scene there, and one of the Christmas classics in Die Hard, and a bit of kind words and thoughts to Bruce Willis, who unfortunately has a late-stage development of his medical condition and is no longer in the public eye, but one of the classic movies, Craig. John McClane, Hans Gruber, one of the Christmas classics, Yippee-ki-yay, Mother Truckers, as the kids would say these days.
I often wonder whether classical pieces like that are the heavy metal of classical music.
They're actually, was it Beethoven? There was one of the famous composers who literally was like a rebel for his time with how he composed music and how it was seen as like essentially the heavy metal of their times. So yeah, it's the history of classical music is very, very interesting. But yeah, a bit of a Die Hard there, one of the Christmas classics, and I'll fight anyone in the chat to death that thinks opposite.
There's I'm just trying to find now at the moment. There was a great piece of animation that I saw last week, and it was one that Sean Lennon was involved with. I thought I'd had it on my Twitter, but maybe I don't. But it was War is Over, and it was all I will say is I think it's like about 8 to 10 minutes, the animation, but it really I think it had quite an impact on me watching it, and it's rare that you could think of something that's animated having an emotional impact. But it was a great piece of work, and I'd encourage people to
you never see Bambi growing up, mate? You didn't get moved to tears? No.
No.
The Fox and the Hound? No.
Nope.
Mate.
Nope. No.
Didn't see, or just didn't get moved to tears watching them?
Maybe a little bit of both.
You monster.
Maybe a little bit of both, but
Land Before Time.
If there's something,
what is wrong with you? What is your major malfunction?
If there was something that I saw as a child that was a bit emotional, like in the Bambi example, I won't seek it out as an adult. I don't want to look. I cry far too easily as it is. People who watch the tip sheet have seen me get moved to tears by not just my own circumstances with the family, but also in talking about other people as well. And even last night when we were talking to Mark O'Neill before we started recording, we were talking about the Starlight Foundation, and yeah, and I was a blubbering mess.
Nothing wrong with manly tears, mate.
So, but yeah, look, I highly recommend that particular animation. I think it's great. I thought I would have had something that I could easily go to. Looks like I don't. So
that's your
I'm
homework.
sure you can find it anyway. If you look at Sean Lennon animation, Christmas, War is Over, then you'll find it. So anyway, John, on with NRL news. We got to wrap up the Tigers. What's happening there? They had their protest at the park. Yeah. The independent directors have come back.
Well, mostly have come back. Our good mate Denny Burgess has stood down as the chairman of the West Tigers, but he's still still on the Holman
head
Barnes
of the Holman
group.
Barnes
So
group.
How much oversight is still there, I don't know. Barry O'Farrell's back, but Richo is not. Shane Richardson has not come back. So the report was that the NRL essentially stepped in and said you can't do that. Like, pull your heads in. So the independent directors were given the option to return to their directorship roles. I believe that at least one has not. Where's my show notes? Did I put it in here? I did. Charlie Viola, I believe, has elected not to come back. And I think there are a couple others considering whether they wanted to return. I don't know if they have opted against it. But the NRL did step in and say, pull your heads in. So, just chaos.
John, just away from all that, because that's their business. Like we spoke ad nauseum about them last week and the off-field stuff. But let's get to their on-field, because they've made that decision to extend Benji Marshall as coach. Have they just pulled the trigger early, just out of panic mode, to try to settle fans down or settle players down or what have you? Has Benji earned such a contract extension?
No, I don't think even the most one-eyed West fan could say that, look how amazing we were under Benji this year with the growth that we had, which obviously you'd contend and say, while they did have growth, it wasn't electric. But even the most one-eyed fan would not sit back and say, well, Benji earned a 5-year extension on the back of that. I don't know. I just I think Benji will stick around as a coach for a while, but this is the sort of deal that just screams parting of the ways and payout 2 years down the road, because things change. Like right now, if the Eels came out tomorrow and said Jason Ryles 5-year extension on top of what he already had, there's an element of me that would be nervous too, because Ryles, I think, had a far better year one than Benji had relatively, and it wasn't year one for Benji this year, I realise. But even if you look at year one versus year two or year three for Benji, whatever it is right now, I think Ryles turned it around a worse roster faster and got them playing better football quicker. And even then, like if Jason Ryles had a 5-year extension, you're like, whoa, you're jumping the gun a little bit, aren't you? Like we got to see getting into the finals and competing with the big dogs before you get that sort of both money and sort of tenure. So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a bizarre move. I thought maybe it was an overreaction to all of the departures that they'd made and the backlash to the fan base, and maybe the HBG group saw everyone saying, you get upset about all these people getting fired, so let's extend someone, and they gave Benji the keys to the castle essentially.
So I'm going to throw a question to you now, John, just specifically about the West Tigers, and maybe our live chat can come in with their quick opinions. 2026, the Tigers, about the same as this year, an improvement on this year, or worse? That's a
real interesting question, isn't it? Because we end up finishing above them, right?
Yeah.
They finished in 12th, I think.
13th, I think.
Did they get bumped even down one more? That's round one. Come on, NRL.com. Why would I want the round one ladder? You're right, 13th. They got split by the Cowboys between us and them. So 13th, 9 wins, 15 losses. Eels up there have 10 wins and 14 losses. Yeah, like on projections, can they get the double-digit wins, let alone get to the top 8? Yeah, their biggest problem still facing them is that they haven't got a halfback. Like Jerome Luai is obviously a very good player, regardless of whether you hate his like or hate his grubby antics, and him being a real spitfire in that regard. He's a good player, but he struggled this year in a way that he didn't for Penrith the year before because he was tasked with taking over the primary playmaker responsibilities, and it's not easy. And I don't think they've got the right guy there to help him. They're talking about Adam Dewey maybe playing in the halves, maybe playing lock forward. I do like Dewey as a talent, or Dwahi, when he's healthy, but geez, he's struggled to stay on the field too. Good young fullback in Buller, but as much as Buller gets praise, there have been limitations to his game too that I think he needs, not to say he can't, but I want to see him take a next step in his playmaking involvements and not just be a running fullback. And
is he going to be distracted next season by all the talk about him looking to get out of
his contract status? Exactly, yeah. I see them treading water right now, Craig. Like I think that that 9-10 win mark might be their high water mark unless there's significant improvement in Benji as a coach and across different player personnel setups. I'm just trying to think. They've lost, so they got the May brothers there, who obviously they were good acquisitions and helped them. And I think that in particular, Taylor will probably be better from having a preseason. He'll probably maybe not make a meteoric jump because we've seen Taylor at his best for Penrith, but I think he'll be a good fixture in the backline for him. I'm just trying to see what why do you keep going to 2026, please? I'm just trying to visualize their team from the last few weeks, just to get an idea of what we're talking about here. They lost the Titans in the last round. Taruva, solid back umpire. Toa, they had Makasini on the wing. A lot hinges on Latu Fainu, I guess. But again, with Latu, I think people keep saying how great a halfback he could be for them, but I see Latu as a 6, maybe a lock forward. Like, he's one of those off-ball playmakers rather than an on-ball playmaker. Appy's a great player, but he is how old now?
He's got to be 34.
He just turned 33, so he was a November baby, so he's gone on 34. Like, you're still going to get value out of Appy because he's that good a player, but for how long? And I know they've got a young dummy half in the wings that they rate to replace him, but still, the transitional process.
Alan De Silva.
Tristan Hope, I think it is. Royce Hunt was a dud for him. Alex Twell, solid player. The Fainu brothers in the fullback, solid players. Excuse me, but there's a lot of role or part play, bit players, guys that help do a job, but I just don't see enough players there to lead them towards a top 8 push. And I'm sure West fans will accuse me of being a hater in that, and fair enough. I'm a Parramatta fan, but I have not seen the year-on-year growth under Benji to warrant genuine aspirations for the top 8. The way that the field's stacking up next year, Craig, we saw some pretty hefty parity inside the top 8, a lot of really solid teams in 25. If I just go back to that ladder, stop defaulting to 26. Oh my God, I'm gonna have a conniption, Craig. I expect the Raiders to drop back next year, Craig. I think that's just the nature of the beast. They're going to be more mid of the field, maybe not midfield, but more mid of the field. But they're still going to be a top 8 contender. Melbourne. The Bulldogs, I think, are still going to be a top 8 contender. The Broncos, reigning premiers, their roster is still outstanding. The Sharks are still a solid competitive roster. The Warriors, again, they're not losing much. And in fact, they managed to lock up Metcalf long term, so they're going to have aspirations of going deeper into the finals. Penrith, maybe the dynasty's over, but they're still a great team. The Roosters, backline depth going to be stretched, but it's the Roosters. They'll find a way. Then you got the Dolphins, the Seagulls, the Eels, the Cowboys. I don't know. There's just so many teams where it's going to be so hard to get a leg up on them for the Tigers. So I think that their high watermark might be 8 or 9 wins again.
Yeah, look, that's why I actually said around about the same as one of the options, because I get the feeling that they found where they belong, which is the middle of the lower end of the ladder. That middle spot of the bottom 8 is probably Tiger territory, and it's I think it's because I didn't see anything in their play that screamed out a team that knew that what they were doing.
No, and that Parramatta had a rough start to 25, but you saw Ryle's vision come to fruition, saw it grow, evolve, and manifest on the field. It declared itself in how the Eels played between the start of the season and the end of the season. And I just didn't see that with the Tigers. And we don't watch 80 minutes of Tigers football every week, but I saw a fair bit of Tigers football. Like I watch a fair bit of neutral football. And they had some good games, particularly earlier on when they had that little stretch where it was like, are the Tigers legit? Like, have they figured something out here? But then you saw sort of like the Tigers of old come through, and they became a bit more rudderless. Still had some great flashes here and there, but as a team, as an identity, as a squad with a vision, I felt like I didn't see it. Maybe other people did, but for me, Craig, I'm with you. I just did not see that. And you contrast that with Jason Ryles. I'm not saying Jason Ryles is going to be the greatest coach of all time. He's not going to guarantee the Eels a premiership, but there was a vision, there was a strategy, and you saw it manifest on the field. Yeah, and that's what I mean. It was almost like Benji's manifest is just be helter skelter, like just throw caution to the wind, and it provides some exciting results. Like you saw a couple of their games where they made big comebacks or had explosive bursts of scoring, but it also hurt their ability to be consistent. And it wasn't like the Eels were incapable of scoring points either, by the way. But it felt like Benji was playing to the Tigers' DNA he knew, right? Where going back to 05 and they, no premiership winners undeserving, but they probably were the biggest benefactors of the top two sort of tripping themselves over, including Parramatta in there and then the Dragons that year. And they played a eclectic brand of football that leveraged both his and Scott Prince's ability to play some heads-up footy. And I guess that's what he's trying to replicate with Jerome Luai. But it is so prone to streakiness, and a lot needs to go right beyond your control too. Again, harkening back to 05 when the two form teams that year tripped themselves up in the grand final qualifiers.
Yeah, I'd rather not remember.
I didn't want to go there, but kind of the analogy spoke for itself.
Yeah.
Oh well, you know what, Jamie, you're right. The Sharks in 2016 were unworthy because while other cap cheaters got busted, as we've alluded to on the podcast before, the Cronulla Sharks conformed to the cap before and after the didn't conform to the cap before and after the grand final, but grand final week, grand final day, that were just right. The Goldilocks of premierships of cap management right there.
Yep, absolute Goldilocks period there. John, apart from that, I think the only other NRL news really going around, Perth had a couple of signings that I don't think we covered last week.
No, I think we might have mentioned Henry, but they picked up Liam Henry from Penrith, and maybe a sign, the classic brother strategy, Craig, but Isaac Fa'asuamaleaui has joined with the Perth Bears. No doubt they're two-part plan to get Tino over there as well. They also have, to some controversy going back a couple months, the Titans recruitment manager who's been accused of some untoward behaviour when it comes to Tino and the Bears. So that's going to be maybe in their favour. I don't know. But yeah, that's the Bears are slowly rounding out their roster. Still no anchor signings, Craig. Toby Sexton's probably the most important one they've made so far, but he's far from a pivotal signing. But
you know what? And I don't mean this as casting any aspersions on Sexton, because he's probably one of those players who deserves NRL time. But if the Eels were signing him, I would be thinking it'd almost be like a Dean Hawkins type scenario where that he can come in and do a good job for you in first grade. But if you're looking to sign an elite halfback, he's probably not in the conversation.
No. Oh, look, I don't think it's disparaging to Toby Sexton to say that he is not in the ballpark of the elite halfbacks of the competition. He's forged a really solid NRL career, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the elite, the haves and have-nots when it comes to being an elite half is so stark and so of contrast that it becomes a talking point in the NRL every week. And you always hear about the Clearys, the Moseses, the Hughes, in that top echelon. And then the guys below them are still very good or on the rise in the Metcalfs and company. And I don't think Sexton's in that class, Craig. But I think he can be a value signing for the Bears, no doubt. But like you said, he might end up being a bridge or a placeholder for whoever their marquee half is, maybe in 28, maybe in 29.
If you were them, John, who would you chase as a halfback? Be it now or be it for 28, 29?
Let's see. I need to think about halfbacks. Give me
I mean, it might even be someone that's under contract, because we all know that something can shake a player loose.
Yeah.
It only has to take their club to sign someone, and then they're like, "Oh, we need to do a rethink of our cap and how we're spending the money, blah 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 blah." And then next thing, you've got a player that's on the market that you didn't expect. But to my way of thinking, John, I think the Bears have to make a marquee signing somewhere in the spine. So whether it's halfback, 5'8", dummy half, fullback, they have to sign someone who is a significant presence in one of those spine positions, if not in two spine positions. They can maybe get away with mid-roster type signings for a lot of other positions, but I think they need a catalyst to other signings, and I think the way to be a catalyst to other signings is that they pay to get someone there who is elite in the spine, and I think it's going to cost them overs to do that, because they have to get them over to Perth, they have to get them to want to relocate, and you also have to get them to feel strong enough about going to a brand new franchise that if they're one of the first players that are signed, and I think they should be looking at signing someone that's significant enough to attract others, then you're probably going to have to pay overs and significant overs for them. But I think if you're a new franchise, I think this is going to be the cost of business for them. I think they have to pay big money for one or two players to start the ball rolling for the rest of it. And I'm seeing nothing at the moment.
I think one's got to, it's got to be a halfback. It has to be a halfback. It's just the most important position. I think you got to swing for the fences. I think you got to sell. It's incredibly unlikely, but I think you got to try and sell Nathan Cleary on the legacy of maybe, splitting from Dad and the Panthers and creating a juggernaut at a separate franchise and being one of the few players to be able to lead two separate franchises to premiership glory. I think that's one of them. I think in a similar vein, I look at someone like Isaiah Iongi as a young and proven half that I know he recently re-signed with the Dolphins, but it was underrated for the market. I think that maybe his manager is going to agitate for an upgrade, and I think that's maybe where the Bears can come in and try and play spoiler. Beyond that, maybe you take a gamble on what would you deem to be a blue chip youngster coming through. AJ wouldn't like me to say it, but I think Rodwell at the Roosters is probably could be their Isaiah Iongi, taking a punt on a very talented young halfback that's dominated in lower grades, through pathways into Cup, and can be the young halfback that learns and grows at the venture with another marquee to assist. But it's in a halfback, it's dire, isn't it? Because Moses long term, Cleary very strongly tied to the Panthers. Katoa, technically speaking, has re-signed with the. I say technically, has literally re-signed with the Dolphins, but at I believe an under market rate that might cause that sort of agitation in a year or two down the road. But at halfback, it's tough. I mean, people saying JJ saying that they've been linked to Tyron Wishart, going hard for him. Tyron's a good player. He's not a marquee player. Like, he is not a cornerstone player for your franchise. Mitchie saying Bears on a 5-year spoon run. It's not looking good for him. The only thing that might save him from 5 years could be the PNG inception too, because they might do it tough with recruitment. Ron saying Ethan Sanders could be available for Perth. You know what? There is a timeline where he might end up at Perth. But
Yep.
yeah, at halfback, it's tough, mate. Like, what about, I mean, you could take a punt on an expiring Cody Walker. I don't know. Did Munster re-sign for Storm in the end? Is he still up for grabs after next year? Oh.
Yeah,
Kalen
basically,
Ponga?
they've got to shake someone loose. They've got to get someone of significance in the spine.
You can't build a competitive roster on toilers, cast-offs, and upcoming players, because we've seen it at Parramatta in the past. You can have plenty of talented juniors, and in some ways you can have a junior step up and lead the path for the team, but you still need senior leadership. You still need senior catalysts to help spark the young players and help them over the humps and bumps that come with first grade football, because it is not smooth sailing. It is attrition. It is wear you down and tear you down in the NRL, and you need those guys that know how to guide other players through those difficult tests and challenges, and how to be a spark on the field. When the game is there to be won, you need a couple of players that can put their hands up and say, "Give me the bloody footy. I'll drag you with me." And yeah, I don't know.
Well, this time next year,
take a punt.
This time next year, they're going to be halfway through their preseason.
Yeah, and again, we've been critical of the coaching process there, because they appointed Mal Meninga explicitly for this reason, to be the guy, the lightning rod for recruitment, to get the marquee signings. He was the Australian coach. He was the Queensland coach. He's got all the connections. The players love him. They've got nothing so far. And by having nothing, it makes the next signing hard, because they can't say, "Hey, Cleary, we've got Cameron Munster. You two could be the best halves pairing for the next 2-3 years. Come to us." Yeah. They can't say to a young half like Rodwell, "Come learn under Cameron Munster," or "Come partner Isaiah Katoa and be the best young halves pairing in the code." It's nothing to sell right now except for cap space.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, mate. Well, have we got any questions from the chat to round things off?
AJ pointing out that Rodwell's locked up until 28. Yeah, I'm not surprised here that the Roosters have done their due diligence there, and seen as I agree he'll be the most likely success of the DCE. I think Savala's probably going to be warming the seat. I think he's been very good for you, and he's just re-signed, I know, but Rodwell looks to be we mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's not guaranteed to translate to the NRL, but he looks to be the real deal, doesn't he, Craig? He was outstanding for the Roosters this year. And not just that, he dominated other grades too beyond SG ball. So he's a real talent. Luai, yeah, good call, Andrew. Luai could be a fair shout. Dearden too. Dearden just feels like a Queenslander. Like as in, I know he's a Queenslander, but geographically he's a Queenslander. There's just something about, I'd be surprised if he got prized out of Queensland, but not the craziest idea there. Who else we got there? Josh saying that they might need to go look at an English half. Yeah, England might be one of their more important recruitment catchments, Craig. I think that they're going to be fighting really hard to get premier NRL talent, at least for the first year or two. They've got to sort of establish some success there, and maybe England's the way to do it. That's how Canberra got their foot back into the competitive side of things, by obviously recruiting smartly among juniors, but also leveraging the English talent. And I think that maybe they can go get some hard heads in the forward pack. That's what conventional logic says, that your best value among English recruits is in the forwards. But maybe they'll have to go to the back line and the spine as well.
Yeah, could very well be, mate. Could very well be. Well, I think that just about gets us to the end of this podcast, John. Thank you to everyone that's joined us today. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club. Do not forget, we've got 2 big podcasts dropping. Our chat with Mark O'Neill that'll drop on Friday, and our chat with 2 of the Parramatta Leagues Club directors, Richard Fodor and Darren Adam, which will drop on Sunday. For Eels members, for Parramatta Leagues Club members, it's really important stuff that we talk about with each of those gentlemen. So make sure you tune into that. And of course, where else are you going to go for Eels content 52 weeks a year than with the Cumberland Throw? So stick with us. Thank you to everyone who's watching or listening to this right now. And if you don't see any of our content before Christmas Day, and if this is your last one, we wish you a Merry Christmas.
Damn right,
but don't forget, there's still going to be some training reports coming in for the rest of this week. I'm a little bit behind on yesterday's one. I have to put my hand up, but we have actually been a little bit flat out, John and I, since then.
Speaking of your training reports, just a word of advice. If you do have problems accessing the site in the next week and a bit, don't be concerned. It is a server migration thing for our back end here. So there might be a little bit of downtime for the site here and there, but that's to be expected. Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with us. It's everything to do with the host.
Yes.
It's
nothing like a good old server migration around Christmas.
Yeah. We've had a few messages come through to me, John. So we'll remember to get that message out there. So basically, mate, as I always say, go you mighty Eels.